Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordian Glory video. And today, guys, we are going to be doing a quick first impressions of the new balanced data slate, the Autumn 2023. This has just been released as of today, and well, as of time of recording, which is today, but you guys will be seeing this tomorrow. Now, I do fully intend on doing a deep dive on this stuff, but I wanted to get a first impressions video out there soon. I will also be doing a live stream covering this, which should also be out at the time of this video being released. So hopefully we'll be able to get quite a lot of analysis on this other channel, but there's going to be so much in here and it's going to be really impactful to the meta that I think we're going to be talking about this balanced data slate for a long time to come. But for now, like I said, let's do a brief first impressions. We're going to start off with the balanced data slate itself, talking about the core rule changes and some of the faction changes, and then we're going to move on to the points cost. And the points cost today will mostly be limited to the guard, although we might dip our toe into some of the Eldar ones as well. We'll just see how it goes. Let's begin with that regular old balanced data slate, the core rules. So to start off, we've got a really big one here. Devastating wounds. Huge change. Essentially, devastating wounds now no longer spill over. So if you're a guardsman and you get hit by like an Eldar Wraith Cannon with 12 devastating wounds, you still just lose one guardsman. You don't lose 12 anymore. Basically, you just don't get any saves against them. But it still just does its normal amount of damage. That's really hefty and I think is a very elegant change to the system. It allows you to still do very powerful things with devastating wounds, but no longer are they going to start spilling over all over the place. To be clear, and I could be wrong about this, so I could be wrong about a lot of things in this analysis. Like I said, it's a first impression, so if I do get something wrong, please don't be afraid to correct me down in that comment section. But to be clear, there's a difference between devastating wounds and mortal wounds now. So I believe that mortal wounds will still spill over, but devastating wounds don't. So now there's a distinction. No longer do devastating wounds essentially cause mortal wounds. They're now their own separate thing. That's massive. Eldar are going to be quite heavily impacted by that simply because their shtick is doing devastating wounds whenever they want. And so now they can still do that, but those devastating wounds aren't going to be evaporating, vapor waving entire units no matter what they are. They're going to just be completely annihilating individual models. So still very good against single target units like tanks and big monsters, but against infantry hordes and regular infantry, you're going to find that those devastating wounds aren't quite as deadly. Next up, we have got stratagems and modifying a stratagem CP cost. This one, I think some armies aren't going to notice it so much, and I think other armies are going to be really impacted by this. Essentially, unless you've got an ability which specifically makes a certain CP cost 0, then being able to make a CP cost less, being able to make a stratagem cost less, can only be used on battle tactic stratagems. And they give a really good example here. So a captain's rights of battle ability enables that model to be targeted by a stratagem for 0 CP. This ability does not specifically name a stratagem, and so it can only be used on a battle tactic stratagem for 0 CP. Otherwise, it doesn't have any effect. However, Azurman's tactical acumen ability enables you to target this model's unit with the fire overwatch stratagem for 0 CP. As the name of that stratagem is specified, you can use ability even though Fire Overwatch is a strategic ploy stratagem. In sort of guard terms, Imperial Guard terms, it's kind of like the Deathcore Marshal allows you to use Insane Bravery for 0 CP. Because it's mentioning a specific stratagem, Insane Bravery, that still works absolutely fine. But if you're taking Creed, now you can only use Creed's ability to give a regiment unit a free stratagem if it is a battle tactic one. However, what's really interesting about this is it's not just changing how you use stratagems on yourself, but it's also changing how you can mess with other people's stratagems. So a Caladius Assassin's Reign of Confusion ability, because it doesn't mention a specific stratagem, doesn't say you can use the Caladius to increase Insane Bravery, that now only works on battle tactic stratagems. So the Caladius is not as useful anymore. And again, from like a guard perspective, Kurov's Aquila isn't as useful anymore because you can only use it to increase the CP cost of a battle tactic stratagem, not any stratagem. There's also been some changes to the fire overwatch strat. You can still do it in the movement or charge phase, but the big thing is that you can't use it on Titanic units. So no more being able to do mega overwatch with your Bane sword, with the concussive wave or anything like that. But more importantly, no more Eldar overwatch with their Wraith Knights, and combining that with the fact that Devastating Wounds has been sort of changed quite significantly, I'm feeling like Eldar Wraith Knights are no longer going to be the hot topic. Although there are some people right now, there's some chit and chat going on around the water cooler that say Eldar are made out like bandits. I'm not certain. I think we'll have to let it shake out for a couple of weeks, but definitely I think a lot of the Wraith Knight stuff is now behind us. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But you guys let me know what you think about that. The big one, though, is you could only do it if it's visible. Now, on the one hand, I kind of get that. You don't want people doing fire overwatch with mortars and stuff. But on the other hand, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've got a bit of a narrow experience on this, a bit of blinders on. But I don't think it was indirect fire overwatch that was the big problem. For me, the faction that's causing the most issues with Overwatch is bloody Thousand Suns with those warp fire flamers. They still need to see you anyway, and so they've not been affected by this as far as I can tell in any way, shape or form. And so yes, there was a little bit of indirect fire shenanigans, but mostly the problem with Overwatch is it's very, very powerful on units that can spam weapons that automatically hit you. I don't think we've seen the end of the changes to fire overwatch, and honestly, I think just getting rid of it in the movement phase would go a long, long way. There's some more stratagem things going on around here, and that is Insane Bravery has also been nerfed down quite a lot. Firstly, you've got to take the Insane Bravery stratagem before you do a battle shock test. So that means you don't get to try and pass it and then go, oh, I'll use Insane Bravery. You have to decide, well, I might pass this, I might not, but I just can't risk it. I can't risk it. Right, I'm going to spend it. So it's a lot less certain before. It's a little bit like the Rogal Dawn's ablative plating thing. You've got to use that ability before you've rolled the save. So that makes it a lot less reliable. Also, you can only do it once per battle. I don't think it needed both changes. I think one or the other would have been okay. If I'm going to only be allowed to use this once per battle, I'd quite like to use it at the best possible time, the time when it seems maybe they've gone slightly too far. If it was up to me, I'd do one or the other. Also, and I'm genuinely not sure about this, and maybe someone who has a bit more knowledge can tell me, how does that work with things like modifying stratagems? Does that mean your Deathcore Marshal can let you do Insane Bravery for free, but once it's done, it's done? If so, that's kind of mad. Finally, we've got quite a big change to Ruins and the visibility. Now, how I understand that this is going to affect your games is now towering models don't just see through terrain. What they have to do is, it's kind of like back in 9th edition, they have to put a toe into the terrain and then they can start benefiting from towering. So it's kind of like just going back to 9th edition and how big models how knights and stuff used to use their visibility and line of sight and stuff like that. So long story short, you can't just see through Ruins now. You've got to stick your knight's toe in there and then you can have a great time. Now, just adding all of this together for a moment, and what we can see is a huge push by Games Workshop to rein in Wraith Knights and Imperial Knights as well. They've changed Devastating Wounds, which makes the Wraith Knights much less efficient against hordes. They've made it so you can't overwatch with it and then just use your dice to get the overwatch off, your fate dice. And now you're going to have to just start actually being aware of the terrain. Combine all of this with the fact that Wraith Knights went up in points again to 510. I don't know, I feel like Wraith Knights maybe aren't there anymore. It's a lot of nerfs. 2 rounds of points nerfs combined with essentially 3 other things that now hit you. I'm not saying Eldar are gone. I think Eldar are still strong, but I think that Wraith Knights are now no longer the hot topic. I think Eldar Army is probably going to pivot into something else now. But now let's move on to the updates to the faction rules. So not only have we had some core rule changes, but individual armies are receiving buffs and nerfs. Start off, it looks like the Adeptus Custodes, the golden light of the Emperor seems to be fading, boys. Right now there's a general consensus that Custodes got hit even harder than Eldar did, which is kind of mind-boggling, but I did hear a lot of problems about them. So the Adeptus Custodes, firstly, their Unwavering Sentinels stratagem got changed to an Epic Deed one. This now means it can't be used for free with their shield captains because of the interaction with modifying a stratagem CP cost. So that's quite a big change. That messes around with the ability for Adeptus Custodes to fight first. That was something that was really keeping combat armies down in the dirt. If you can actually get a good few jabs in on Adeptus Custodes before they just stab you up, that's big. That's really big. Combine that with the fact that they've actually changed the max size of both Custodian Guard and Custodian Wardens. So now you can only get a maximum of 5 in each squad. The days of bricks of 10 Custodes walking onto the objective and just locking it down and you being able to go nowhere near that, that's gone. That's dead. That's over now. That ain't coming back. And then you've also got Virtus Praetors. These are the jet bike guys. They're also limited at 2 to 3. I really feel like this is a really big hard knock to Custodes. This is going to make them quite manageable. From a shooting army's perspective, it's much easier for me to blow up 5 Custodes than it is for me to kill 10. Even with like a combat guard army, which is a bit of a meme, but you could soften up 5 Custodes down to 2 with a good blast from a battle tank, and then charge in with some infantry, probably kill 1 more, and then it's 1 Custodes just trying to hack his way through 20 plus guardsmen, which you're going to have the OC advantage there, and he's probably not going to get through all those before he gets dragged down. So yeah, I definitely feel like there's some potential here for Guard to actually now be able to fix bayonets against Custodes and not like necessarily beat them in combat, but be able to actually out-objective them. So that's quite big. But overall, really, really big hit to Custodes. Really, really big nerf. And I think we are going to see that faction be less oppressive, less of a gatekeeper. On a more positive note, the Adeptus Mechanicus received bonuses to their Scutari. Both the Rangers and the Vanguard had their saves improved from a 5+ to a 4+. Hey! They scraped all the rust off the metal. They've given it a nice polish, and they've slapped a few extra bits of corrugated iron on there. Now they feel a lot healthier. Or maybe they just took the batteries out and turned them around and put them back in, or maybe they took the cartridge out and blew on it. I don't know, but it looks like these Scutari are having a better time now. 4+ save with a 5 to the vulnerable makes them distinctly different to your Imperial Guard and other light infantry. Makes them quite durable on the GEQ scale. On top of that, just at a quick first glance, dipping into the points for a second, it looks like Scutari have had some points cuts. It would be nice if GW had like an old cost, like striked out, and then the new cost. It's like old cost in red, like new cost in green. That would be kind of cool to be able to see the difference. But just at a glance, those Scutari Rangers seem a lot cheaper. I'm pretty certain they're like 120 points before. Vanguard, now 80 points. So fingers crossed, overall, the AdMech have gone down a bit, and maybe we're going to see some nice Scutari hordes again. That would be cool to see the legions of the Adeptus Mechanicus march forth once again. Now, the Eldar, they only got 1 change. Some people might be quite disappointed by that. They might think that they've got away with it. But I actually think that when you take into account the other stuff we've already talked about up here, this is probably one of the changes that they needed. One of the last little bits that they needed. Combined with the fact they've had quite big points increases. I've heard that some of the more meta lists have gone up by 360 to 400 plus points. So you've got, your army is now 20% more expensive roughly on average. Your big units are significantly less impactful. Your devastating wounds aren't as good A lot of other factions went down by 20 to 30%. So you're looking at maybe 40 to 40% swing in terms of points difference, what Eldar can get in their list and what other factions can get in theirs. So there's quite a big points difference. There's a lot of changes that they are affected by the core rules. And then they've targeted their stratagems as well. Now, Phantasm, I believe that stratagem that lets you shoot. Move after shooting. It's like jump, shoot, jump. It's fire and fade, that kind of thing. So Phantasm now can only be used on an Eldari infantry unit from your army. So you can't have quite devastating units jump out, shoot you, and jump back in. If I'm right on that, it means that the old Fire Prism shoot and scoot isn't a thing anymore, which is big because Fire Prisms aren't particularly durable. Fire Prism can move out and absolutely evaporate, just completely disintegrate a Leman Russ. But then what's going to happen is my Leman Russ is going to come out. Another one of my several hundred Leman Russes is going to roll out from behind a building and just delete that Eldar, that Fire Prism. So, but it can't even do that anymore because it can't do that anymore. It can't jump, shoot, jump. So that I think will be quite impactful. Small change to the Agents of the Imperium. Now your exaction squads, the really cool Adeptus Arbites guys, they are 10-man minimum. So you can't take a 5-man squad for 35 points. You've got to take a 10-man squad for 70 points. But honestly, they're still great. 10-man squad with Fire Feel No Pain is actually quite a durable light infantry option. So I think that's still not too bad. Wait, ignore me. Exaction squads went up to 11 points per model. They're completely dead in the water. That's a big shame. I think making them be 70 points and no minimum 5-man squad was enough. I think this is another example of maybe GW going slightly too hard. I think at 35 points they were no-brainer, but being forced to take them at 70 points in a 10-man squad, I think that was already enough. But that's a shame. I was kind of looking forward to maybe doing a big Adeptus Arbites army, and now I don't think that's really going to be possible. But moving on to a more positive change, we've got the Death Guard. Hurrah! Papa Nurgle has finally decided that his children, his adopted sons, the Death Guard, the Plague Marines, that they've suffered enough. I mean, they normally like suffering, but they're meant to suffer and Nurgle takes the pain away, and he wasn't living up to that end of the deal. But now he seems to have given them some pretty good stuff. So, spread the sickness attachment rule. You add the following to start this rule. So, I think you still get the contagion stuff, but now you get loads of extra bits as well. So during your declare battle formation step, select one of these sicknesses below. Until the end of the battle, all units from your army with the Nurgle's gift ability gain that selected sickness. So it's not at the beginning of each turn. You've got to pick it at the beginning of the game, then that's it. It's kind of like Black Templar vows, right? You get to pick the vow, but once you pick your vow, you're with it. All right. Skull Squirm Blight. Squirm. While an enemy unit is within contagion range of this unit, worse than the ballistic skill and weapon skill characteristics of weapons equipped by model in that unit by 1. That's pretty good. That's a bit of a durability boost. Making enemy units, making it hard for them to hit you is pretty nice. Of course, they've got to be in contagion range. And contagion range starts off pretty low and then goes up a bit at a time, right? It's a bit of a durability boost. I think a lot of Death Guard players were kind of hoping for some sort of feel no pain or damage reduction back, but it's an indirect durability boost. Rattle Joint Ague. I like that name. While an enemy unit is within contagion range of unit, worse than the save characteristic models in that unit, enemy unit by 1. Pretty powerful. Basically, they're giving extra AP to the Death Guard, but again, you've got to be in that contagion range, so it's not bad. It's okay. You've got to decide, I guess the point is, do you think you're not really going to be doing much damage anyway, and you just need to be able to like tough it out? You go for Skull Squirm. If you're like, right, my opponent's not that shooty, but he's pretty durable, I need to get up close there and start messing him up, Rattle Joint comes in, yeah. And then you've got Scabrous Soul Rot. All of these names are amazing. GW, genuinely not taking the piss, 10 out of 10 with all of these. They feel very nurgly and they make me feel a bit uncomfortable, which is exactly what you want. While enemy unit is within contagion range, this unit worse than the leadership and objective control characteristic of models of the unit by 1. My gut instinct to that one is a bit shit, but You know, at the end of the day, objective control, whoever's got the more of it can hold points. If you've got more points, that means prizes. So maybe I can't help but think that it's between the first two. That's my gut instinct. Anything that tends to mess with leadership and objective control just seems like a bit of a waste of time in 10th edition. Most people don't really care about battle shock. And if you mess up with someone's battle shock, then surely their objective control doesn't matter. Because it's 0? Don't know. That one's got a cool name, but it's not making me too happy. These two make me happy. Overall, it is quite a lot of extra rules that Death Guard can pick from. It seems pretty nice, but I think we all just wanted a durability boost and to be moving 5 or 6 inches a turn. GW, this kind of feels like you're trying to push a square peg through a round hole. Give us Death Guard players, and I have a lot of Death Guard. I've got like 120 Plague Marines, right? Just give us Death Guard players some sort of feel no pain, some sort of damage reduction, and an extra pip of movement. That's enough. That's more than enough. So these are cool. I like it. 10 out of 10 for style, but minus several million for good thinking. Moving on to the Death Watch. Dragonfire rounds, Hellfire rounds, and Kraken rounds have all had it so it improves the AP characteristic of bolt weapons. I imagine so that's not improving the AP characteristic of non-bolt weapons, maybe before it affected every gun in a squad. If that's the case and they've had a little bit of a nerf, that's interesting. I feel like Deathwatch was strong, but they were mostly strong because they were anti-Xenos. And if a lot of Xenos stuff has gone the way of the Dodo, like I've heard bad things about the old G-Cylindrical, and as we've seen, Eldar have been hit multiple different ways with the nerf bat. Maybe that would have been enough to rein the Deathwatch in, they just wouldn't have been as relevant. But it still looks like a hell of a list of stuff that's going to benefit from it. I must apologise, I'm a little bit ignorant on the Deathwatch changes here. So if you are a Deathwatch player and you're screaming at the screen right now saying, Mordin, it's a huge buff, or Mordin, it's a huge nerf, please, I genuinely welcome your input. Like, it would be amazing to know what the general impact on this is. Is it a significant change or more of an FAQ? But if there's one thing I am absolutely certain of, it's that the Gene Stealer cults have been taken around the back of the chemical sheds and shot. If this was Stalinist Russia, they would be getting photoshopped out of all of the photographs. They are basically Lenny looking at the rabbits. They've gone to the farm that's really far away, so we can't go and visit it. I think what's interesting is Gene Stealer cults were having a bit of a downward trend on their win rate. It kind of felt like the usual Gene Stealer cult thing where they come out and for the first 3 months of them being released, they were massively overwhelming. But that's because people didn't really know how to deal with them. Gene Stealer cult are very tricksy, they're very janky. But once you unlock the jank, once you realize how to beat the jank, then they kind of start falling down. And we'd started to see that. But maybe they were just being suppressed by the Eldar domination, like so many things were. Gene Stealer cult have had a big nerf. Really, really big nerf. So previously, where their battle line stuff would automatically regenerate with Cult Ambush, now their units come back on a 5+, and if it's a battle line unit, it comes back on a 4+. That's... You've gone from automatic comeback to you're coming back 50% of the time. 50% of the time, it works every time. Now, you do get to add another +1 to the result if it is the first or second battle round. And that's quite a nice change because often games can be decided turn 1 and 2. So rather than making them wait until turn 3, 4, and 5 for it to get a bonus, they're like, no, Gene Stealer cult, front load, you get bonuses at the beginning of the game, but that's it. I quite like that as well because often one of the tactics of dealing with GSC has been the first 2 turns are just horrendous. This is like a traditional one over like 8th, 9th edition. The first 2 turns, they're just swarming, they're popping out of drains, they're jumping off roofs, they're absolutely swarming and swarming and swarming. You're getting hit from every angle and it's like this overwhelming just wave of just crazy stuff. But if you can survive their first 1-2 punches, then the army peters out. And that was always some advice I used to give to like players who were facing off against the first time. it's going to feel like you've got no chance of the first 2 turns. But if you just wait them out, you'll pull the game back turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. And it feels like GW has embraced that feeling for the faction. Like, they burn bright, they burn hard, but they do burn out quickly. So I quite like that. I like the idea of the change. It just feels quite heavy. Very, very heavy. But maybe with Eldar being taken off the top and changes to GSC, they'll hopefully settle into a nice-ish position. Grey Knights have had a small change to their haloed in Soulfire stratagem. It's now strategic ploy. I imagine that's to interact with the new CP stuff that's going on up here. But to be honest, the Grey Knight changes are in the points costs. They've got quite a bit cheaper. Will that be enough to pull the faction out of the gutter? I'm not certain. You can make Grey Knights as cheap as you want until you give them some long range or even close range anti-tank. They're going to struggle. After this, we've got some more changes to the dreaded Imperial Knights. Now, I am surprised that Games Workshop has chosen to hit them again, because it feels like this change to the Bondsman ability, now it only affects the Armiger. I think previously it affected the Armiger and the Bondsman as well, but the Questoris, but not anymore. And then they've also changed Thunderstomp, so it's an epic deed. So again, that'll be to interact with the new stratagem changes. Imperial Knights had already been hit by some pretty big points changes. They'd also had their main rule clarified so that they weren't getting 4 rolls to hit anymore. It really feels like they were kind of fine. You know, I've taken on Knights several times in 10th, and I took them on with guard tanks when guard tanks were pretty expensive, and it was fine. I was able to deal with them. So I'm surprised that Knights have been hit again. Bear in mind, they're also going to have been hit by the towering changes. And they can't Overwatch anymore. Has GW gone too far? I've just nipped over to the Imperial Knights point changes, and it looks like they've put the points of the Helverins and the Warglaves up. Yeah, they were one of the things that they were spamming. They were spamming them Armigers. They've put them up and they've made Knights not as good. I don't know. It's interesting. I never thought I'd sit here saying that GW had gone too far on Knights. I mean, they're a pretty universally disliked faction by a lot of people. But I think they'll settle into a half decent position now. I think they won't be top dog, but if they settled into about a 45% win rate, that wouldn't surprise me. But from the tallest to the shortest, it is the Leagues of Cheese, or previously known as Leagues of Cheese. Now I'm not sure what they are of. Leagues of Please GW, make us better. Leagues of Votann have had some changes to their Ruthless Efficiency Detachment rule. At the start of the battle, you get to select a number of units, depending on the size of the battle. So for Strike Force, 4 units, and each of those units start with 2 Judgment tokens. If at the start of any of your command phases, any of those units have been destroyed, you gain a number of CP depending on how early in the battle you destroyed it. So they're sticking with the Judgment tokens, but now they're handing more of them out. I guess that 4 units with Judgment tokens and any command phase means that any of those units, not even all of them, just any Judgment tokens are all right, and giving them more Judgment tokens is good, but they're just nowhere near as impactful as they used to be. I think it's a step in the right direction. Votann definitely needed something extra, but I've just been totally underwhelmed by Judgment tokens this time round. In 9th, they were horrendous. I feel like in 10th, you can kind of give as many Judgment tokens as you want out to Votann. It's not going to make a blind bit of difference. But the really exciting stuff is in the points changes. Now, for today, we're going to focus on the Guard. Later videos and stuff, streams, will cover the other factions. But now we're just going to have a little dip our toe into the new pool. And the water is feeling fine, guys. There is some ups, there is some down, there is some good, there is some bad. But overall, I think Guard are looking all right. Definitely in the right direction. So starting off, we've got Artillery Riders down to 70 points for 5, 140 points for 10. That is the same as Death Riders, and that's pretty good. It's all right. I still think Death Riders are better. I don't think it's enough to make Rough Riders viable. The only way you're going to make Rough Riders viable is with making Melter viable and making them more reliable. So It's a nice change, but it ain't going to fix them. I'm still Team Death Rider all the way. Where the big news is the Super Heavies. Baneblade down 60 points, 480. Bane Hammer down to 450. Bane Sword, my current favorite, 480 points. Now, all of these going down in points is fantastic. Guard Super Heavies becoming ever more viable is awesome. I actually have a video that's already recorded that's going to come out. That's going to be the Super Heavy Showdown. I'm not going to re-record that because a lot of what I say isn't necessarily based on the points cost. It's more based on the abilities of the vehicles. And what I would say here is, whilst these changes are nice, the Baneblade's still very swingy. It's 3d6. Sometimes it'll roll good. Sometimes it'll roll bad. So I think the Baneblade is viable at 480, but I don't think it's my first pick. I still think it's one of the less good options when you've got things like the Bane Sword, the Shadow Sword, and the Storm Sword, which are all looking very, very tasty. But hey, I'm not going to complain about Bane Swords going down. I'm not going to complain about Bane Hammers going down. All of it is looking great. The Basilisk stayed the same points. The Armor Sentinel stayed the same points. The Aegis Defense line stayed the same. Ah, that's a shame. They could have really done with a big cut. After that, we've got the Bullgrin squad. Bullgrins went down to 80 points for 3 from 90 points, and 106 points for 6. Fine. Again, I'm happy to have any points changes, any points cuts, but the problem with Bullgrin is they need a 2+ armor save, and you can kind of fanny around with all the points changes you want. Unless you're going to make them practically free, you really need the 2+ armor save, because they're meant to be durable, and right now they're really not durable. Caden Castellan down 5 points to 45. Nice. It's all right. Can't complain. Caden Command Squad still at 65. I mean, it was already kind of the lesser option, because it was 5 points more expensive than the Platoon Command Squad. I know Caden Stands is kind of a cool ability, but I think it would have been nice to see that come down to 60. Caden Shock Troopers did get a points cut though. In fact, all of the infantry bar the Death Corps Krieg did. Caden Shock Troopers down to 60 points makes them a pretty nice, sort of cheaper alternative. It's like, look, do you want lots and lots of special weapons? Go Death Corps Krieg. Do you want less special weapons but cheaper? Go Caden Shock Troops. I still think, like a 10-point difference between a 20-man Cadian blob and a 20-man Krieg blob. I still think you're probably going to go for the Krieg. But bear in mind that now a Krieg blob is still going to be 190 points for 1 and a Marshal. And a Caden Shock Trooper squad is going to be 165. And that's a 25-point difference. Over the course of an army, if you were to swap out your 4 Krieg blobs for, let's say, like 4 Caden Shock Trooper blobs, you'd save 100 points. So when I think you're looking at these Cadian and these infantry, these guard changes, don't look at them in isolation, because guard are a yield army. We like, it's not about individual points cost, it's about how much it's saving you in the grand scope of things. And if you want to talk about big savings, Catachan Jungle Fighters are now 55 points per squad. The Catachan Combat Army just became even more viable. Yes! Yes! I love it. That's actually really good. I was already warming up to Catachan significantly, because I was already thinking like, well, your infantry are just there to hold objectives, your tanks can do the damage. Now that like Catachans are 55 points each. Wow. You could save a lot of points if you started spamming Catachan Jungle Fighters and looking at things like tanks, because tanks have gone down as well. So I like that. That's a really nice change. I really like that. I honestly can see myself spamming a lot of Catachan Jungle Fighters now. Who would have thought that we would live in a meta where the Catachans were my favorite infantry choice? But they are. Chimera, already a fantastic unit, down to 70 points. Oh my god, that's awesome. That's really, really, really good. You can now put a Catachan, not a Catachan squad, a infantry squad in a Chimera, and it'll cost you 130 points. Wow, that's cheap. Quad Flamer Catachans, a 10-man squad with 2 Flamers, and then the Chimera with 2 Flamers. That's only cost you 125 points. That's like cheaper than a Hellhound, or same price as a Hellhound. Either way, it's pretty good. I think 70-point chimeras is extremely spicy, and I would not be surprised if mech infantry spam becomes a big thing. Commissars down 30 points. Nice. I mean, they're already very cheap. Kind of feeds into the Katachan combat spam, doesn't it? Because if the only order you really need is fixed bayonets, then you might as well spend 30 points on a commissar, right? Interesting. Definitely. I think the main thing with commissars is we need to know if they help you survive orders. You know, with the whole like passing battle shock and execution. But I'm not going to turn down them getting cheaper because commissars are cool. Gaunt's Ghosts, 100 points. They were already an auto include. They just got cheaper. Yes. Combine that with the fact... Well, I guess they've got cheaper because they were very good, but they were kind of an anti-Gene Stealer cult unit. But if Gene Stealers are going to become less relevant, then Gaunt's Ghosts are going to become less relevant. So having 100 points kind of keeps them interesting. But yeah, really, really cool unit. Great to see them go down in points. Deathcore Krieg didn't change. Deathstrike didn't change. Lol. Doomhammer didn't change. I already thought it was kind of shit. Now it's... Yeah, that's surprising that they didn't make that one go down. In my opinion, that's bottom of the bucket now, completely. Fobs didn't go down. That's a big shame. They really could have done with going back to 100 points to make them viable. Heavy Weapon Squads didn't go down. That's fine. They were already very good. Hellhammer, 450. I think that is a very attractive points cost, but I think it's a trap. Problem with the Hellhammer is not its points cost. I mean, it was kind of expensive, and so making it cheap is nice. It's one of the cheaper ones, if not the cheapest super heavy. Oh. But I think the problem with the Hellhammer is it doesn't do any damage, and 46 shots is very, very swingy. If they made it 450 and 3d6 plus 6 shots again, then it becomes viable. But right now, Hellhound stayed the same, Hydra stayed the same. I'm okay with that. They're both very good units. Infantry squads down by 5 points, so 120 points for a 20-man squad, 60 points for a 10-man squad. Fine, they were fine. Again, any infantry discounts is brilliant, and it does differentiate them from the Deathcore Krieg. And in the economy of scale, that's some pretty significant point savings. Oh, my favourite points change coming up now, boys. My favourite points change. Colonel Strachan, who's already an absolute fucking weapon. Already a sleeper. Already a hidden gem. Already, I think, extremely viable. 55 points. That's a 25-point decrease. Yes! Katachan meta is here! Yes, yes, yes. I love it. I love it. I am all about the Katachans now. Strachan being 55 points makes him an auto-include. No word of a lie, Strachan is now an auto-include. Katachan Jungle Fighters, you're going to want at least one squad. Bang Strachan in there. You're having a great time. Really, really, really happy to see that change. Kazakin down to 100 points. That's good. Makes them cheaper than Scions, even with the Scion changes. I did a video recently on well, it's actually not out yet. A lot of my videos have been invalidated, but the funny thing is a lot of my videos have been changed by this, ones that I've got pre-recorded, but they've just got better. So I'm just going to put a note on the editing. I'm just going to put a note in the description and in the pinned comments, just being like, this tactic only got better with the points changes. Everything I say here is still valid. And Kazakin Deathball just went from being interesting to very, very interesting. Very, very good indeed. Then we get to the battle tanks. The Lehman Russes. The Metal Boxers. Holy shit. This is all amazing. Basically, we're back to 9th edition points cost, and I couldn't be happier. Lemus Battle Tank, 15 points cheaper. 180 points, I'll take that. Demolisher, 200 points. Pretty pricey, but I'm not going to turn down a cheap points cost like that. The Lemus Eradicator is now 160 points. That is incredible. That is absolutely incredible. I think I need to get myself some Eradicators. Because unlike you can get 3 Eradicators for the price, basically, of a Hellhammer. And the Eradicators do way more. At the end of the day, boys, it's 160 points for a lot of rolling steel. It's a genuine blocking tank now. Screening tank. Sure, it's dedicated anti-infantry, but we seem to be heading in an infantry way. So with a lot of the nerfs to like towering and stuff, it could become pretty viable. Executioners, 180 points. That's fine. Exterminators, 180 points. Nice. They were fine at 200. 180, amazing. Punisher, 160. I don't know. Hey, it's if you were running Punishers, at least now it doesn't feel like you're being slapped in the balls, not a nice way whilst you're doing it. Vanquishers down to 155. Okay. I still think Vanquishers are awful, but 155 points for a Lehman Russ is amazing. It's really, really good. The thing with the Vanquisher being that cheap is you're now actually not taking it for its main weapon. That's so cheap that if the main weapon does something great, but if it doesn't, you're fine with it, because you're basically paying 155 points for a Hellhound that is and has more wounds and probably does more damage, because you're still getting the 4 multi-melter shots. You're still getting the lance cannon on the front and the heavy stubber. Yeah. As wild as it sounds, the Vanquisher is still probably awful, but the fact that it is now cheap, that you can spam it so hard, at that point, it's a lot of armor for your opponent to deal with. A lot. Can't help but think that's a thing there, boys. Lord Solar made out. He's 125 points. He did not change. That's good. He's about right at 125, because he doesn't do any damage, but he's a very good force multiplier. Manticore got nerfed hard. That's sad. Honestly, I feel like Guard shouldn't have had any points increases, but it seems like GW hasn't finished beating the ever-living crap out of Guard Artillery, because we had a lot of stuff go up. At 150 points, I would tentatively say that the Manticore is now unviable. Not completely dead, but I think it's unviable. I think you've got to go for the cheaper artillery now. You've got to go for the Basilisk. The Manticore's nice, but the Basilisk, at least you're really taking your artillery to like mess up people that are trying to hide like small fragile units. Basilisk does a good job of that now. Militarum Tempestus Command Squad stayed the same. Services stayed the same, which is fine. They were actually pretty good. Not Dead Dog came down by 10 points. Fine. Ogre Bodyguard stayed 40 points. Fine. Ogrin squads, though. Ogrin meta. Oh my god, it's a Katachan Vanquisher Ogrin meta. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? How are we in this meta, boys? Ogres just came down to 65 points. They were already great. They were already amazing. Now, I see no reason to take 18, to not take... I see no reason why you wouldn't take 18 Ogrin. It's not even, like, you can 3D print them. You could convert Age of Sigmar ones. It's not even that expensive to do it. 18 Ogrin meta incoming, not even joking. That's only 390 points. It's less than 20% of your list, and you're getting a huge amount of firepower, and you're getting some actual half decent combat potential, which Guards always struggled with. Really, really good. Ogrin's going down to that point now. They're proper meta now. 2 command squads stayed the same. Promoter Cycle stayed the same. Battling Snipers came down 10. Bring them down another 10 GW, then we'll be talking. Regimental Attaches stayed the same. Engine Steer stayed the same. And Breach stayed the same. Would have liked to see Attaches come down maybe 5-10 points. Breaches should have come down to 30 with Commissars. Engine Steers are fine at 45. So you know how I got all squiffy about the Lehman Russes being good? Russes are good. Rogel Dawns are better. Rogel Dawns were already a top tier tank for the Guard. Now they've just gone down 25 points. Oh, tight. 260 for Rogel Dawn now means Double Dawn is probably meta. It's probably the way to go. Triple Dawn is viable. Triple Dawn is going to come in at 780 points. That is a lot of heavy armor. And you still have the points you need for infantry, and you still have the points you need for some light artillery or some medium artillery like your basilisks. Yes. Double Dawn and like an exterminator. That's probably the nice middle ground. But yeah, Double Dawn should be in stick. If you're a fan of guard tanks, you like your traditional sort of hybrid guard formula of infantry screen, and then you've got a spine of tanks, then some seasoning of artillery. Double Dawn's probably where you want to be looking now. Sadly, Scout Sentinels went up in points. I actually don't think that was necessary. I actually think what should have happened is Armored Sentinels should have come down to the same points as Scout Sentinels, or Armored Sentinels should have come down by 10 points. Scout Sentinels were not a problem. They were a good unit, and the main thing you were taking them for was like daring recon. Sentinel spam, you saw it a little bit, but it wasn't really dominating the meta in any way. The main thing was people were taking Scout Sentinels to make their artillery better. The problem is now that, but the thing is about Scout Sentinels, and think about guard artillery, and one reason why I don't think GW should really have nerfed it as hard as they have done, is you had to set it up. So your Scout Sentinels did help you get past indirect fire, but they cost you points, and they had to do it within 18 inches, and they needed line of sight. So there were a lot of hoops you had to jump through. I don't think you needed the points increase on the artillery. I don't think you needed the points increase in Scout Sentinels. I think what you do is you make other guard stuff cheaper, and that makes it more attractive. I think there's been a slight bit of double dutch here from GW. They've over nerfed artillery because they think it's a problem, but the way you fix that is to make other things seem more exciting. Sergeant Harker down to 40 points is cool. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think he was, what, like 55 before? Going down to 40 means if you're a Cast Jam player, chuck it in Harker. You're not going to be punished for it. But he's still not great. Even with it's Harkin time, he's still not great. Shadow Sword 440, fine. It was still very good. It didn't change, but that's okay. Slime Arbo 65, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, 60 would have been better. 65 is okay. 75 was too much. 65 is a good step. He is good for like scoring points and stuff. But at the end of the day, you probably still take something like Scions because they're just a little bit cheaper. Stormlords stay the same at 460. Pretty certain GW saw my Bang Bus video. And then the Storm Sword came down to 495. So the Storm Sword is like the best version of the Bane Blades, and it is now the most expensive version, but it still had a discount. It's just not had as big a discount. So I think the Storm Sword is still good. And I think if you're going to take a super heavy, you're not going to quibble over the 15 extra points you're going to take over your Storm Sword, over your Bane Blade. I still think it is probably the top dog. It's nice. Tank Commanders came down to 205 points. Yes! Yes! They still only get one order. They still are kind of expensive, but friggin' hell, 35-point discount. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. It just means that now you're gonna take one. You're gonna take the Lord Solar, and you're probably gonna take a Tank Commander Grand Strategist, and that covers you for all of the different orders you need. Yeah, no, I like that. It's not too hard, not too soft. It's about right. I would have accepted 220 and all Tank Commanders can do 2 orders, but I'll accept 205 and I get the choice to make one of them be able to do 2 orders. That's okay. Torok 65, actually think that's become much less viable now because the Chimera is only 5 points more expensive. But I guess if you were taking a Torok, you were doing it for like some sort of like Kazakin style Alpha Strike rather than anything else. So it's fine, but the Chimera is definitely the better day-to-day choice. Your Chimera is your everyday drive now. Your Torx is something that you pull out if you need to do something special. Torx Primes at 90 points is fine. No complaints there. It would have been nice maybe them to go down to 85 just to keep them sort of in line with Chimeras, but Torx Primes are very, very good. And I guess Scions did get cheaper. Next, they got 5 points cheaper per. They got 1 point cheaper per man, basically. 11 points each. So Scions are now a little bit more expensive than Kazakin, but I'm okay with that because I actually think Scions were the more viable choice, the more superior choice. And bear in mind that now a Torx Prime with Scions in it is going to cost you 200 points. That's not too bad. Ursula Creed stayed 55 points. Valkyrie went down by 10. Not enough. Needs to go down at least another 10. And then we get to the Forge World stuff, which was basically GW just nerfing everyone's favorite things. So Earthshaker carriage batteries are now completely and utterly dead and non-viable. They're 120 points. I mean, they were already on the edge at 80, but no. Earthshakers are now dead. Reducers are now dead. GW's clearly sold enough of those. Rapier laser destroyers, I think, went up by 5 points a pop. They're still fine. Like 35 points is still good for you rapier laser destroyers. And I think the tarantulas went up by 5 points, which is weird because they're not that good. I mean, people say they're good, but they're not that good on actual boards which require movement. And then the Thunderbolt went up 10, which makes me the big sad because it was already too expensive. The big flyers needed to go down in points, GW. Thunderbolt needed to be, the Valkyrie needed to be 180. The Vulture needed to be like 190, and the Thunderbolt probably needed to be about 160. It's gone the wrong way. It's gone the wrong way, DW. Overall, I think Guard did really well out of the points changes. Your average guard list, I would say, has gone down by about 10%. So you should find yourself with, about 150, 200 points more to play with. That's going to get you an extra tank. That's going to get you an extra squad with, like a Deathcore Marshal or something in it. Yeah, it feels like a lot of guard armies are going to be able to squeeze an extra unit in here and there. I feel like if you were taking the really good stuff, the best bits like your Deathcore Krieg and maybe Demolish and stuff, you might find yourself with an extra 5%, but you were already taking really good stuff from well-tuned lists anyway, so being able to get an extra 100 points on a list that was already doing quite well is, again, not much to be too upset about. The big thing for me here, though, is if you are the kind of guy that just embraces quantity. Quantity has a quality of its own. You can really spam a lot of cheap stuff now. If you switch your Deathcore of Krieg blobs over to Catachan Jungle Fighters, you're going to save, if you're taking 4 Deathcore Krieg blobs, you're now going to save 80 points. If you were taking Demolishers, and now you're taking Vanquishers, or maybe Punishers, or Eradicators, just one of the cheap options, you've gone from spending 220 points on each tank to like 160. That's 60 points saved per vehicle. If you were taking 3 or 4 tanks, that's another potentially 180, 240 points saved right there. Combine that with the infantry savings, you're looking at 350 points. You could be looking at a 20% increase in your list. And now you can take more of that stuff you want to spam. I think that there is definitely some viability in just going all numbers, mega swarm, just waves of tanks and infantry. And even though individually each one of those units is rubbish, it's so much that it overwhelms your opponent's anti-infantry, and it's so much that it overwhelms your opponent's anti-tank. It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But I think there's something for everyone here. Do you like big tanks? Baneblades and Dawns went down. Do you like medium armor? All your Leman Russes went down. Do you like infantry spam? You can now cram even more infantry in there. Do you like Catachans? Yes. Do you want to feel like you're not getting punished for taking Cadians? That's okay. Like Ogryns, but who doesn't like Ogryns? Awesome. Even some of the flyers of the Valkyrie have got a little something, if not enough. But there's definitely overall a positive trend with these changes. We didn't get any new rules though, but I think we got the bare minimum. Guard were in an okay position. I think this will get us up to an average of 45% win rate, I reckon. I don't think it'll get us into the Goldilocks zone where GW wants factions to be between 45 and 55% win rate. I think we'll just toe into that zone now. I think if GW wants to get us to a cool sort of average of 50%, they need to dial back some of the indirect fire nerfs just a little bit. And I think maybe need to clarify commissars fixing orders, so stopping orders from going away with battle shot, because right now that's a bit open to interpretation. And I think that they give us old born soldiers back. I think if they do that, Guard go to 50%, give or take 1 or 2% on average each week. But right now, this has definitely been a shot in the arm, and it's not about looking at Guard in isolation. We're going to have to see how it all pans out with things like Eldar now seemingly less dominant and Custodes being seemingly less dominant. 2 armies which our faction has traditionally struggled with. overall, I think the Balanced Data Slate has done a good job. I think GW has gone hard, maybe in some places too hard, but I have been saying for a while now that this data slate did need to be a big one. And so I'd rather see them go too hard and there'd be a little bit of collateral damage like the Manticore than for them to go too soft and has had to deal with another 3 months of Eldar domination. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in that comment section. How do you feel about the guard changes? Are there other factions that I should be aware of? And do you think enough has been done to Eldar, Knights, GSC, and Custodians? Of course, like I said before, if I've got anything wrong, please let me know. And if you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier patrons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a massive thank you to Bonbonvert, Ken Starr, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. You are incredible. Your generosity is truly humbling, and I could just say it 1,000 times over and over again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.